Hi, I'm Steve Gilles. I started my career in technology and found my way into recruiting. So I'm the founder of Look Ahead. We're a technical recruiting agency based in Sydney. We hire mostly software engineers, but then also the people around them that you would get in a product development team. And the recruiters that we have mostly come from the industry. So they have that empathy for how software is built and using their people skills and technology skills in a recruiting capacity. And that's worked really well so far. I built that because my career, like I was always interested in technology. That's kind of what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to be, but I knew where I wanted to be, and I was pretty lucky in that. As a kid, I was just fascinated by computers and was drawn to them. I was also pretty interested in business as well. And, in high school, I'd even read business magazines every week. And so you're probably picking up that I wasn't one of the cool kids at high school, but it certainly set me up for a series of happy accidents, for the sprints that informed my career. So I left high school, and my uncle called me up, and he needed a network set up, and he knew I knew about computers, and that was the first taste I got at, I guess, doing what I loved for money. From there, I studied IT at university, and my job between lectures and tutorials was making websites and fixing servers and whatnot. And that grew into a real business. I landed a really big client and couldn't do it myself, so I brought in one of my best mates and we incorporated a company and ran that for a number of years. And so I got a taste of running a business, learning about technology and solving lots of different problems. And along the way, got exposure to recruiting companies. A bunch of my clients were recruiters, and I figured that'd be a cool thing to try. So, when that business wrapped up, I joined a bigger recruiting company, and they trained me really well, and I got to work alongside some of the best, and I got to observe the habits that they had and the things that they did, and basically I emulated the bits that resonated with me, and I ignored the stuff that didn't. And so after working with a big recruiting company, I joined as the first employee at a smaller one. And that was even more valuable experience because I was there from the start. We recruited through the GFC together, and I really learned about what it took to run a sustainable business and to grow a company. And so by that point, I'd run my consultancy and I'd worked in other companies for 5 years. I felt I was equipped to at least go out as a one-man band with Look Ahead, which I did. At the time, probably didn't have the skills to run the team the size that we have now, but certainly had the skills to be on my own. And then over the 8.5 years that Look Ahead has been around, I've grown myself as I've grown the company. So the best and worst career advice that I've ever received along the way, the worst advice was never coming from a bad person trying to steer me wrong. It was coming from someone well-meaning who was giving advice that worked for them but didn't apply to my situation. And other people don't know your situation, so it's kind of up to you to take as many data points as you can, listen, but then figure out, what bits are going to apply to you, like what bits of advice makes sense for your situation at the time. And so for me, a bit of advice that I got at a really young age, I was in year 3. My grandfather told me to work really hard for the first 40 years of my life. If I did that, the second 40 years of my life would be a lot easier. And I think that was good advice for me. It spoke to delayed gratification. It spoke to sort of working hard at school, even when maybe I didn't want to. And it spoke to thinking about career early on. How am I going to add value to the world? How am I going to earn a crust? And that worked out to be really good advice. Another bit of advice is around knowing what time is worth. There's a guy on Twitter, Naval. He shares a lot of good thoughts, but one of my favorites is around setting yourself an aspirational hourly rate. So figuring out what is an hour of your time worth, make that a high number, make it aspirational, and then use that number to decide, when something needs to be done, do I pay someone else to do it or do I do it myself? And I think another, really good bit of advice for me was around the need to focus, around the value of finding a niche. So, figure out what sort of work do you enjoy doing? What do you find easy that others find hard? What do you like doing that other people don't like doing? What feels silly to you that, you get to do and you get paid for? And I think when you do work on something you enjoy doing, you'll work harder at it. You want to be the best. You want to work harder than most. You want to become an expert. And so, in creating that niche, figuring out, what do you want to be the best of the world at? And that sounds daunting to being the best in the world at something, but I think, with creating a niche, you get to define the world really small and you have an actual shot at it. And so what I wish I knew when I started my career, I think I wish I understood the scale that technology was going to change the world. Like I knew it was a big deal, and I was there for the early days of the consumer internet. I've invested in startups along the way, but I think if I knew how big it would be, I would have invested way more. Been way more risk tolerant and just gone in. Been less cautious, really. But look, that's hindsight. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and it has worked out in its own way so far. Another thing I wish I knew when I started my career is that there's not like a work life and a personal life. That there is a fair bit of overlap. And of course you need your boundaries, and there needs to be sort of some sort of private personal life. But there's a lot more overlap than I realized. I wish I knew that early on, and that's a really good thing. I think it's taught me to gravitate towards people who challenge me, who help me learn, and inspire me every day, and make me happy. Because if I can get my work life right, I'm coming home in a much better headspace. So the biggest mistake that I've ever made, well, look, professionally for me, it's a ton of little ones. And if you call mistakes failed experiments instead, it sort of makes mistakes fun. Like you're not messing up, you're doing science, right? And so my failed experiments, if I look at the pattern behind all of them, for me, it's a lot of the compounding effects of inaction. So, there'd be times where I waited for, a little bit more data to make a hard decision that I probably knew in my gut needed to be made right away. And then obviously some, bad things happen after that. I think delaying tough conversations is another form of inaction that, I think causes bad things to happen. So I guess, for me, there's that scale. There's like moving fast and breaking things, and there's being too cautious. And, I can tend to sort of play it safe. So if I'm to correct, I need to go towards sort of moving fast and breaking things. Whereas, someone else might take that advice and, they might be on the other side of the spectrum and may need to go the other way. So I think it's just about having that self-awareness and sort of calibrating to yourself. So what I think has been key to my success, other people. I think if I use the metaphor, with bricks and mortar, other people in my life are bricks and my hard work is the mortar. So really kind of, not that, my hard work isn't that much in the big scheme of things, but it does bring it all together. And like other people is really what matters most. So, the first two people, my first two bricks, are my parents. Like I was really lucky to have them. They're very loving parents. We were in Australia. I was able to, be happy, healthy, have a wonderful education. I was able to sort of notice computers and be able to get one and play around with it and have, a home where I was able to really explore my curiosities. I think without that, all of the advantages in my life wouldn't exist. And so you got other, bricks. I got two strong brothers that I learned from. They challenged me. They called me on my bullshit frequently, and I got to compete with them and knew that, while we had that brotherly relationship, like that, love and support was always there. And that, those foundations of family sort of gave me a lot of confidence, that made me know I could, go out there and tackle the world. And from there, there's other people. So, other family members, friends, bosses, colleagues, authors of books that really resonated with me, famous people on the internet who I sort of learned a lot from, bunch of people. And then I think finally, timing. For me, like I can't recreate the luck of my timing. Being a nerdy kid in the 90s, really was, a big stroke of luck. And sort of seeing the internet in the early days and being able to form a career around that as the industry, really sort of grew from strength to strength. That was the rising tide that lifted this boat.